Well, let's talk migration because it is back in the spotlight. I'm not sure it ever went away, but as it relates to housing, it is red hot. Anthony Albanese has pledged to overhaul a system that was described as neglected and badly broken. The issue of migration is coming up repeatedly in focus groups conducted by the Redbridge group, especially in relation to housing and the cost of living crisis. Joining me now is Simon Welsh, the director, one of the directors at Redbridge Group. Good to see you, Simon. So take me through it. How is immigration being raised in this research?
Yeah, thanks, Laura. Yeah, look, I think you've sort of touched on the important note there, which is it's sort of been in the last, I'd say in the last month, it's really sort of started coming through with any consistency in the focus groups. As you sort of said it out, it never goes away as an issue, but it's been coming through, and it's been coming through across voter cohorts. Whether we're talking to people in the outer suburbs, whether we're talking to people in regional Australia, whether we're talking to people in the inner city, it's coming up. And it's coming up very much in these sort of economic terms, particularly as it relates to housing. You know, we're bringing in large numbers of migrants and we've got a housing crisis. How's that going to work? And I think the really important point to make here, because I think this is the bit that causes the trouble for both sides of politics, is that it is very much about the policy, not the people. So it's very much about sort of the volume of migration. It's certainly not about, you know, we should be looking to take more migrants from certain countries and less from others. It's not about notions of good migrants, you know, the migrants that come with skills and those sorts of things. It's just about the broad policy setting and the broad economic impact of that. And
right. So as this comes up, what are the kind of comments that you're getting in these focus groups? And is it all weighted to concerns about the level of immigration, that it should be far less?
It's very much raised in terms of housing. That's sort of the key flashpoint, if you will, right now. That this idea that, you know, we're struggling to build enough homes to house people who need homes at the moment. You know, all around the country, we talk to people, there's not enough land. Even if you can get land, good luck getting a builder. And even if you can get a good builder, keep your fingers crossed that they don't go under, sort of thing. So in that context, you know, this idea of more people into the system, doesn't matter where they're from or who they are, it's not about the people, it's just about this policy setting. So I think, you know, the challenge for government there is really to make the case, for migration.
Yeah, right. So the blowback here is on the government, is it? Because the government, I think, we talked last year about there being a competency issue with Anthony Albanese. And it related to immigration and, you know, the High Court decision at the time. Has that, you know, we've since had, you know, stage 3 tax cuts rehauled. Has that competency issue come back into a positive light for Albo and the Labor government, or is that still kind of feeding into it, this housing issue?
Yeah, look, I think it's actually worse than competency in some ways. It goes to a care issue. So, you know, I don't think it's migration issue.
Are people kind of saying we're not sure they get it, the government?
That's it. Right. That's it. I don't think it's a vote shifting issue in itself, but it just adds another layer to this story of, you know, out of touch. They don't get it. They don't understand the pressures that we're under, how hard it is, particularly for young people trying to get into the housing markets. It's that disconnect more than anything.
Wow. Okay, so can I ask you also about, I don't know whether this has come up in the groups at all, but we've had a few things that I think are not vote changes, but certainly vote framers, if you know what I mean. So we've had the change in the stage 3 tax cuts, you know, the Albanese government kind of drawing a line between rich or poor. Put that to Albo. He didn't like that term. He said, you know, that's not a term he would use, and that's fair enough. But coupled with that, they've also gone with the right to disconnect laws and, you know, having the Fair Work Commission looking at things like the right to work from home. How is all of this going down, do you think?
Yeah, well, stage 3, it has been, you know, it's given them something to talk about in that cost of living stuff, but it certainly hasn't been enough. I think things like right to disconnect and those sorts of things, again, that they're sort of longer term. there's slow burn sort of political benefits. Once people sort of start to see and feel that you might derive some political benefit out of there. But it's a nice signal of whose side you're on. So in terms of those signals, we've had stage 3, we've had right to disconnect, and those things. So they're sending signals about whose side they're on. The problem is that still runs into this horrendous cost of living crisis that we've got at the moment, where people are saying we need more than signals, we need help. We need financial assistance, we need economic reform.
And are they offering up any solutions, in these focus groups, like, the government says it wants to do everything it can about the cost of living. Why don't they do X, Y, and Z?
The one thing that keeps coming up consistently is we need to tax our corporations more. That disconnect around sort of average punter and corporate Australia is the defining kind of economic tension at the moment. So when people are looking for someone, well, who can we take stuff off? Because we know we've got to pay for all this stuff. So who can we take stuff off in order to pay it? No desire whatsoever to pick on other Australians. But so that's when the conversation really reverts to around corporate Australian corporate taxation and those sorts of things.
So is there still this, for the 2 decades I've been in journalism, there was always, talk about the aspirational voter and how, changes of stage 3 tax cuts, as we've seen, hurts the aspirational voter. Because, I want my kids to be earning 200 grand a year. I'm sure more people out there want their kids to be earning double what they did. You want your better opportunities for your children. So has there been a negative effect on those changes to tax cuts?
So the thing about the aspirational voter is there's not that many of them left anymore. Certainly not in sort of the political geographies that really matter. That kind of aspirational voter of the 90s and the early thousands was a very boomer Gen X product. So as we've seen the millennials become far more politically influential, and sort of some of the younger sort of Gen X cohort as well has been subject to this as well, which is they've just experienced their whole working life has been pressures squashing aspiration. Wages haven't gone anywhere. The promotions aren't there. All these promises that were made in the form of education. If you get your university degree and so forth, that you will do well and you'll have a well-paying job and you'll have the dream, the Aussie home in the suburbs. Their whole experience of adult life has been counter.
So they're under so much pressure now. They just want solutions now. They're not even worried about aspiration.
No. It is literally survival stakes for millions of Australians at the moment. I can't emphasise that enough. It's brutal. So you finish some of these focus groups, you sort of have to go and debrief. My poor wife has to listen to me debrief after some of these focus groups because it's awful.
What are people like crying? Are they like stressed? Is there anxiety? What is it?
You get people pretty close to tears in a lot of the groups. And it's just telling these awful stories of, that they've literally got nothing left. So what got us through sort of last year when as the interest rates were rising, people were burning the savings that they'd made during COVID. People had made some savings. They were burning through debt to get through it. All that is now exhausted. Even if interest rates start to come down over the back half of this year, which, there's some indication that may happen, look, that will have some political benefit to the government. But for a lot of people right now, there's no reserve. There's nothing left. So every time prices go up at the bows or in the grocery store or something like that, that means that's something less they're able to buy. And as you and I have talked about before, that the conversation has now shifted from cutting down on the car usage, cutting down on the air conditioning, to cutting down on food. That's the reality.
Yeah, and there's this line being drawn by the government, and when you look at the data, in fact, most people that are defaulting on their mortgage earn over 150 grand a year. So, look, I'm not sure whether that's coming through the groups, and I'm not sure the government completely get that at the moment. But Simon, it's always a fascinating chat. A little bit depressing and grim today, I might say, but we need the unvarnished truth. So thank you.
This is it. Thanks, Laura.